As soon as Cardi B came out, the whole market got saturated with girls that thought they were strippers. And I don't want to be one of those old bitches that's like, oh, I remember back in the day. But in a night, without even hustling, people just like giving you money or whatever, you can make like 3K Australian very easily. Like that was just like a normal
BRB
kind of,
going and quit my job.
it had got to the point where he was, it was a point of crisis. So he was coming home very drug fucked all the time, and I was in danger. So everything was in my name, all of our debts, everything was all in my name. When you're in survival mode as a female, when you're running away from abuse and running away from a real like crisis heavy situation, you just have to get out of there as quick as you can. So my mum lent me $500. I bought a car. Now there's so many like opportunities like this where people like me that wouldn't have had the opportunity before can come forward and can kind of expand that thing. So yeah, I think probably when I first came to Melbourne, when I'd broken away from everything, it took a little while to understand that I'd actually even been in a cult, because when you're raised, like I was raised up in country Victoria, like a beautiful family, everything was fine, my upbringing was fine. But these sort of religious organizations can be quite predatory in the way that they'll find somebody that's broken, that's in need. And it's quite different to, for example, your church on a Sunday, like your cute little kind of church on the corner and stuff. It's not at all like that. And I'm not saying anything against kind of Christianity, but this organization that my parents got involved in, they were struggling in their marriage. And it was an organization that had come from overseas. It was like a Christian-based drug rehab. And they set up shop up in regional Victoria. And they just started bringing people in to kind of like recruiting people, you know. So from year 10, which is what, 15 or so, I was taken in and homeschooled like entirely. Nobody could go out, nobody could come in.
This was like your parents?
Yeah. And I'd probably say that one of the hallmarks of a cult is the whole concept of there being like a leader or being like a head figure who's the main passage of indoctrination towards the group that is there. So there's a difference between, for example, a pastor and you know, the people in the church, as opposed to in a cult, there's a main person that's telling and mentally kind of indoctrinating the people to do what he or she says that they should do.
So it's kind of like a little bit manipulation. Would you
like a lot manipulation?
Yeah.
And
I mean, I was being a sprinkle of manipulation.
It's so crazy, but I only learned what a cult was when I watched this show called Nashville, and I know a lot of people haven't watched it, but I was always wondering, because when I was watching it, I was like, are they just like, are they showing this show in like an extremist? Like she had a family, everything, and then somebody kind of pulled her in. She left her family behind, her kid, and she went to this cult. And I was wondering to myself, I'm like, does a cult mean like you're kind of living in a village and you have to live there? Or can a cult also be kind of like a religion where it's like you believe in it, but you're not there like with the whole community?
So this organization that we became part of, it was in 60 countries in the world. And after I finished school, I went and I visited those other ones, and they were connected to the community, the other branches of this organization. So I think what I've seen is that the difference is the thing of being shut off. So when you have a group of people and they're shut off from the media, shut off from any kind of outside influence, the thing of people not being able to go out or come in, it's a lot different to these other branches that I saw where they were open to the community, you know, which I think is a big difference between a cult and just an organization, you know. Yeah, for sure.
And I just have a question. I don't know if this is like, does a cult, for example, like, does every cult have its own belief? Is it based off religion, or how does that work? And what kind of was the belief that
being in that cult?
It doesn't have to necessarily be Christianity, you know, it doesn't have to be the same kind of doctrinal throughout, but I noticed in like in the cult that I was a part of, it was a very strong emphasis on heaven and hell, a very strong emphasis on doing the right thing, otherwise you were going to go to heaven or hell, whether your soul was saved. That's a huge thing, like holding the fear of, is your soul saved, you know? So holding that fear over people's heads.
Yeah. And what are things that they would say, like, to manipulate you? Like, what, like, do you remember certain things they would tell you? And when you were there, were you like, oh my God, I don't believe this? Or were you brainwashed in the sense where, like, you believed it at the time?
The things that they would use is very like in-group kind of terminology, as in us and them. We have the answers and people out there are blind. Very like very strong, a very strong idea of we have the secret, we have the answer. If you're going to go out there, you're only going to find sadness. You have a you know, a God-shaped hole in your heart, and the answer is this. And people out there don't have it.
Like they make it like you're above everybody else in society, and that's kind of the way they use it to manipulate.
Yeah. And when it comes down to spirituality, in a human, you know, you can tap into that whole concept of, if there is worship playing and that sort of thing, there are elements that make it feel like it's holy and make it feel like you're part of this kind of other dimension kind of thing. So people that are manipulative enough, they'll tap into that and they'll kind of feed people that thing of, you know, we're holier than everybody else, I guess.
Yeah. Right. How did they get you like in a cult? Like, how did they get your parents kind of, I don't want to say brainwashed, but like, how did they bring that upon you? Because in the show I watch where they speak about cults, like the girl was a super, super successful person. And the reason for them bringing her in is because they wanted her to give all her money to them. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. When I look back now, my father was a bad gambler. My mum was holding up the family and she really needed support. She made friends with, you know, she became born again. So she went down that whole thing. People usually that become born again, they're looking for answers. And so they're actually quite vulnerable to manipulation. If you embark on that road of religion and opening yourself up, you're very, very impressionable. So she was introduced to them by a friend of the church, and they make you feel like you're part of something. You know, they make you feel like you're really needed in that community, and that is very soothing for somebody who's going through hardship, you know. And so for my mum, she felt like she was being supported. She felt like they were looking after, you know, her husband. She felt like, oh, these people actually want me and they're going to help, you know. And then after it's like in an abusive relationship, after you feel that love and that acceptance, then they start putting down like the rules and the things that you can't do and where you can't go and what you have to do, and you can't see your family and you can't do this and you can't do that. So
it's all gradually.
Yeah, but yes, very incremental, very.
That's some serious brainwash. Crazy.
Like
oh my God. What were some things that like, what were kind of like the rule? I guess for every cult there's different things, but like maybe like the rules, like maybe some things that you weren't allowed to do that were really like frowned upon and kind of isolated you and your family, I guess, within this cult.
For me, and the reason why I was kind of very heavily brainwashed by this is because I have a really gentle character. I'm the youngest of 4, so the other 3, they weren't a part of this. It was my family just took me separately.
Oh wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah. At the end of year 9, and this is kind of looking back, these are the parts that that made me angry that it happened, you know, because it was so unnecessary. At the end of year 9, they pulled me out of school without any kind of any warning, anything. Like I was pulled out of my friendship group, everything, and put into this kind of scenario where I just wanted them to be happy, you know. I just wanted to do the right thing. And so I think that indoctrination was very easy for me as well. I just wanted to see my mum happy, so I just went along with it as well. But as far as can't do, this is the only way that I can explain it. It's kind of like a jealous boyfriend. Like, no, you have to be here. Like, your role is here. You're not going out. You've already been out once this month. you can't go out. Like like you can't go out. No, your family can't come in. Like they don't need to come in and see you. Like your children are grown now. Like you don't need to do that. You know.
That's crazy.
So,
That's crazy. When your mom was there a time when she realized like, wow, like I'm being brainwashed, or wow, this is really not what I expected, or was it really when you became older and started making decisions for yourself where you were like, I need to get out of here? Like, how did you transition from being in the cult to leaving?
You know, it's often very difficult for somebody that's come from that sort of, and even as I talk about it, I think about the people that would listen to me talking about it in this way and would be angry that I'm talking about it in this way. But when things start happening that are really unjust and things that just you can't look past, like my mum wanting to see her kids and not being able to, just it made her so deeply sad. And she has a very fiery spirit, but she was just constantly being like suppressed and crushed and told that she was too much and told that she needed to submit to her husband, told, you know, that she needed to submit. And she was like, no, I just want to see my kids, like I just want to live my life, like and my daughter who's 15 can't even go out of the vicinity. Like this is not what I signed up for.
Why do you think they were doing, like, they didn't want your mom to see the kids? Was it because she would get like a taste of fresh air and then want to leave? Like, do you know why?
Well, this is the awful bit, and this is why it was a cult, because there was so much grooming going on. There were, you know, older men there from overseas and ex-drug addicts and people that were recovering. And there was just so much grooming going on with me, with some of the other families that were there, their younger daughters. Like there was really fucked up stuff that was happening.
Can you explain a little bit about like what grooming is and like what it kind of means?
It was so awful for me to realize that I remember sitting down after all of this had happened. I was sitting down in my house watching a documentary, and they started talking about this thing of grooming, and it hit me like a train of like, I was groomed. Like I was 15, 14. And I remember that one of the members of the cult, he'd come from Portugal, and he was 30 years old, and he started talking to me on the side. Like he'd take me away on the side, and he started talking about us getting in a relationship. He started to like really kind of made me feel like I was in a relationship with him, because he wanted me to go with him, leave the place and go and get a visa off it, you know. So he was like heavy trying to like bring about this romantic relationship between him and a 14-year-old, you know, and he was doing it behind everybody's back. And these are like people that are from the streets, you know, they've recovered from the streets, they're streetwise as fuck, and you've got this like impressionable, indoctrinated 14-year-old there, you know. So all of that sort of stuff was like, it was looked over because it was for the greater cause. Like we're all here for this greater cause and we're all doing this. So grooming looks like when you have somebody from the age of, you know, from birth through until 18, there's a duty of care that is necessary. And when that duty of care isn't met, that's when this whole concept of grooming comes in, where you're manipulating a younger person that doesn't have the understanding or the capacity yet to be able to deal with it or make the decisions on that behalf. That's what grooming is. When you take somebody that can't make a decision otherwise and you manipulate them to do whatever they want, whether it be sexual, whether it be like romantic, whatever it is. So yeah.
That's really crazy. That's insane. And I guess it was something that was, like you were saying, very common in kind of the cult that you were a part of, and just kind of looked over
and looked over really... yeah. And like I have an older sister, and she came to visit once. She came in for church on Sunday or something, and I remember her taking the head dude, the pastor, aside and saying, what the fuck is going on? Like, what is going on? Why is this guy looking at, like, I can see what's happening. Why is that guy looking at my sister like that? Like, and I think that's why, you know, it was really, the whole place was cut off, because when you have people coming from outside, you know, it disrupts the whole like the whole
I
mechanism.
mean, they're gonna
guess.
right
For
away see what's
sure.
wrong. They're
That's
gonna be
it.
like,
When you're so in something, whether it be a relationship or anything, it's harder for you to see it as for the people on the outside who are looking in. And I think they know that. They know they would see them as crazy, so they just rather distance everybody else so they could just be brainwashed.
Absolutely. And I think that's where you can see the common thread with society, or with humanity, because you see that on a smaller scale in, you know, in a person that's abused in a relationship. They're cut off from their family, they're cut off from influences. And so that can happen, I guess, in these scenarios on a greater scale with a group of people. It's the same kind of thing, the same kind of.
And at what point, like, how old were you about when like shit got real and you were like, okay, this is like my turning point? I know you spoke a little bit about you know, something about with marriage with happening within the cult, and was that kind of like, do you want to explain a little bit about that and how that affected you?
It had to get a lot worse before it got better. I think if I had just, you know, I'd been heavily indoctrinated, and especially the curriculum, like the schooling that I was given, didn't set me up for life at all. It was like, you know, and global warming's happening because God's going to judge us all. Like that was in the curriculum of what, you know, there was just nothing that could set you up for life. So I kind of stayed with the organization overseas for a bit, and I came back, and I was still kind of part of this. And there was one guy that was 10 years older than me. We started getting kind of close, and the pastor and the group and everything were kind of pushing for us to get married because, you know, no sex before marriage. So, and this would be another like couple for the group, and then, you know, God will bless you and all of that sort of stuff. And so yeah, I was like heavily manipulated into this marriage.
What age were you when you got married?
19.
And how old was he, if you don't mind me asking?
He was 29.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was an ex-heroin addict from England. He'd been in the organization and he was clean, but he'd never lived outside of the organization. And so looking back now, he was, like I said, like, you can't take somebody from, this is the difference, and this is what happens in Australia. Australia is very young. Australia is very fresh. There's opportunity everywhere. So if you take somebody from the streets of Europe, you place them in Australia, they're just going to wreak havoc because they'll just hustle the shit out of everybody. They'll get what they want. They'll, like, people in Australia just aren't designed to be ready for that. So he like was able to manipulate this marriage because, you know, eventually got him a visa. I was with him for 4 years, and it was pretty much just me and him. So not long after we got married, he kind of organized for us to leave this, and we kind of just lived by ourselves.
Oh wow, so you actually broke free from the cult with him?
With him, it was him like being like, let's break away, let's start our life. Like,
wait,
so then it was kind of a blessing in disguise, right? Would you say?
Yeah, and I think I was just not sure of what the fuck was going on with anything at any point. Like I was just not.
I feel like, yeah, because you got pulled in so early on, it was harder for you to see life before, which is why it kind of like fucked you up in a way.
Yeah, and that intense loneliness of being homeschooled, being sat in a room by myself for 3 years, and only having people around me with this like warped kind of thing. When somebody kind of had partly a bit of nous to kind of be like, okay, well, let's do this, I was like, yeah, okay.
You're like, I'm in.
You know, no, let's do something. All right.
Because there's so much manipulation, was that also the case when you guys wanted to kind of escape? Like, do they try and tell you not to? Like in the show, I watched, they like could not leave. Like she had to escape. She had to like steal a key and stuff. So I'm just wondering if it's to like that level.
Well, it's definitely like if you're either in or out, you know, like you're either for us or you're against us. If you're for us, then you're part of this amazing group and this amazing thing that we're doing. But if you're not, we'll pack your fucking bags right now and get out of here, and we don't ever want to talk to you again. Like there's no, you know. So this guy and I made that decision and ran for the hills. So we left. And
how long after you left like did you and your husband stay together?
We stayed together for 4 years. So
Okay.
I just wanted, like I was saying before, just wanting to do the right thing. I was like heavily religious, was just wanting to be a wife for my husband, like worked really, really hard. Didn't really speak to anybody. Didn't say he like more of the manipulation, like didn't want me to like kind of demonize my family, didn't want me to talk to them. Just a continuation of that kind of toxic kind of thing. So yeah, 4 years, which I made sure that it was long enough because we were friends, you know, we were close, even though it was toxic, we were close. And I just wanted to give it as much as like all that I could so that I didn't have like a what if kind of mentality. So yeah, but it was a horrible 4 years.
I mean, at least the only plus is that it kind of made you get away from, you know, the cult that was kind of like suppressing you. And it was almost like your stepping stone to freedom.
Yeah.
Like once you guys ended up like separating or whatever, like was that the point where your mindset started changing, where you were started to be open to like different things and kind of like started to get into the world that you're in now? Or you know,
no, well that's the amazing part of the story, because I'd say, and this is kind of what I talk to like every female about now, like I've just finished my degree and I've just started piecing together what I've learned from that whole kind of time of what I can teach other females as to when you're in a shit position, what it actually takes to like bring you out of that. Because my situation's interchangeable, you know, everybody all over the world have these horrible situations that they find themselves in. But the thing that's the same amongst all of us is like that fire and that grit that you have internally that makes you pull yourself out of those situations, I think is kind of a pretty universal thing. So I'd say maybe 3 years in, maybe a little bit less. So he was starting very heavy on the drugs. Like we were living in a pretty shonky end of Melbourne, and he just liked that kind of street life, you know. He liked the dodgy people, he liked homeless, he liked all that sort of stuff. So he was getting on ice, I don't know, meth, whatever you guys call it over there. He started kind of doing that, a bit of kind of polyaddict behavior, just finding stuff that on the weekend, just getting fucked up however he could, you know. And for me, that was terrifying because I didn't even know what that was. Like I was a virgin on my wedding night. I was like this little thing that I just didn't know, you know. So I think about maybe year 3, I loved him. I was really, you know, manipulated and everything, but something was happening like in the back of my mind, you know, like, you know, when it starts like, hang on, this is not, wait a second, like this is not what I want. Like, is my life going to look like this forever? Like, you know, do I really want, you know, it starts kind of really grinding away in the back of your head. And I got to the point where, this is kind of the amazing bit of it. I think about 3 years in, I started to think to myself, I want to study and I want to make money. Like I've always wanted to do a degree, but I thought, how can I make the most amount of money in the shortest amount of time possible? And I started developing this fantasy of like, I didn't even know strip clubs existed. I thought maybe it was like still something from the 80s. Like I didn't even know, but I just knew that I wanted to be a stripper. Like I just knew it. It was something.
It was your calling, like, deep down.
Yeah. I had like an inner stripper the whole time, you know. But somehow like I started, I think the first thing I did, because I knew that I'd been homeschooled, so I didn't have a score to get into uni. So I went and did a diploma of business while I was working, like balanced it all. And then slowly, like in the background, I just started researching strip clubs and like watching YouTube clips of what strippers do. And
you're like, this is sick.
You're like, I'll start my
Come on, get me going.
You're like, how much money can I make in a night? Perfect.
Yeah, pretty much. Google. Yeah, no, it was my way of dealing with the last year, because I had this project on the side of like, I'm going to break free from this. Like not only am I going to break free from him, but I'm going to break free from, you know, the whole religious thing was definitely like, don't talk to boys, don't like sexes, don't masturbate. Like, if you think sexual thoughts, you're going to go to hell.
You told that cult, I'm doing the complete opposite.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That cult is looking at you like, she should have been out from the very beginning. We're ashamed.
Like, the funniest thing sometimes, because I used to do a show in the strip club that I was in, and it was a twerk show, you know, and it was like on the main stage. And sometimes I'd be mid twerk and I'd look around like at the crowd and be like, fuck, I look at where I am now. Like, I think that twerking naked in this guy's face. Like,
Different extremes. It's crazy.
So like when you
yeah.
when you kind of took that first step and you were like, fuck it, I'm gonna be a stripper, my inner stripper is released, were you like, right off the bat, were you like, oh my God, this is what I imagined it to be, like this is what I needed, and it kind of gave you that freedom? Like, how was your journey into literally being, you know, kind of, oh, I can't remember the word, but kind of like boxed in to being like totally free and taking control over your body, over, you know, your life, and just being like, I'm gonna be a stripper and I'm gonna make my money and I'm gonna do my shit?
Yeah. Well, this is where I get really angry with society when they start to try and and make out as though any of the sex industry is like subpar or should be like, you know, put to one side or shouldn't be talked about. Like, no, that's so wrong. Like, what's wrong is like the injustice that's being done against females in the way that they are being told to, that this sort of stuff is dirty or that it shouldn't be. Like, if anybody wants to come to me and tell me that I've done the wrong thing, like, they can go fuck off straight away, because I know in myself, one of the most kind of outstanding things was when I went into the club. It was the first time that people treated me with respect. It was the first time that I'd had like, the management was great, and it was the first time that I felt safe. There was security there looking after me. There was management that were watching my back. Like, I'd been through so much violence from my, you know, in that marriage, and I'd been through so much manipulation, that to actually be appreciated and paid money for actually what I was worth, which was, you know, I'm bringing something to the marketplace. I'm bringing like my beauty, my ability to hold a room, all of that sort of stuff, and I'm being paid for it as I should. It was just such a like, it made me who I am today, 100%. Yeah,
For sure. And like, I guess let's get into a bit of like the fun stuff of like, kind of like, you know, how you've just kind of embraced this and you were like, this is like how it's obviously, like you were saying, you did a degree in psychology, right?
yeah.
So like how it just kind of like became your person, like it just became a part of you, and you're like glowing now. Like, I can't imagine you ever being
contained.
Yeah, I can't imagine you ever being contained.
Yeah, it's crazy.
When you were just like, I'm naked and I'm amazing and I'm beautiful.
And I have amazing tits. Like,
I feel that there's truth, you know, there's truth that exists kind of in this world, and the society might not talk about it. You know, the society might not phrase it in a way and show us what truth is. But in an experience like that, where there was a female that was suppressed, and that actually came into her own in that sort of setting, in that situation where I was able to just be myself, I think that truth of like, that is okay. That is how humans should be. You know, you should be free to be yourself. You should be free to express yourself if it feels right for you, and if it's contributing to society, you should be able to do it. Because I think once you start down that road of doing what's right and doing what's you know, setting yourself in that freedom, I think it just snowballs, you know. And I felt that glow that you're talking about when I started actually just doing things for myself, you know, becoming free for myself. That's when I really started kind of coming into my own. And that was 4 years ago. I look back now and like,
is that when you kind of said to your husband at the time, like, I'm making my own dough, I'm able to like provide a life for myself? Like, clearly you're not it, you're dealing with your shit. Is that when you kind of packed up and you said, I got this, like I can take care of myself?
I wish it had been that kind of empowering and amazing looking.
But you sang which is really nice.
In my mind, sure, but
you're like, fuck yeah.
It actually, it had got to the point where it was a point of crisis. So he was coming home very drug fucked all the time, and I was in danger. So everything was in my name, all of our debts, everything was all in my name. And I had to, when you're in survival mode as a female, when you're running away from abuse and running away from a real like crisis heavy situation, you just have to get out of there as quick as you can. So my mum lent me $500. I bought a car, left him everything, left him absolutely everything. You know, you hear about these women that, you know, divorce their husbands and take everything. No, I literally packed my shit in my car and drove out of there and never spoke to him ever again.
Wow. That's
yeah. So there was no discussion. There was no like, I'm making, but no, it was just gone. So
wow. So you almost knew like you would find a way to make the money. Like you were like, did you know stripping was your calling? Like when you were in the cult, like when were you like was it from a young age?
Down on my knees praying like
you're like, wait, I like this position.
No.
You're like, I realized when I wanted to make money that stripper was my calling. I went on Google, I said, how do I make money? And stripper was the first thing that popped up.
It was adorable actually, because I went and like secretly I went and did this photo shoot. I got all these glam photos and I made like a resume and I was like, you know, skills, good with people, like and just emailed it to the strip club.
They were like, you're hired.
They're like, send us a picture of your tits. I will let you know if you're hired.
I still laughed about it to the managers like ages later, like, why are you sending in resumes? Anyway, what happens with money, and I think anybody that's been in this position, they'll understand it. When your back's against the wall, that's when you fucking make money, because you don't have any other option, you know. I knew that I was going to make money no matter what. And it's been one of the biggest lessons of my life and one of the most helpful tools that I could have ever like grasped onto. The whole concept that everything is only just like your mind is just going to dictate how far away you are from anything. So if you want money, you're going to get money, you know. The limitations that we put on ourselves for these sorts of things. Like I had, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of debt. And I paid it off so quickly because I just wanted it bad enough. Like if you want something bad enough, it doesn't matter. And that's what I say to these women that talk about when people come to me and they ask advice on whatever, just at the very center of it is like, if you want to be away from that shit bad enough, you will. Like it doesn't matter how bad it is. Like
I also want to point out that I really like that you said, you know, you kind of had it in you where you're just like, I feel like I had this inner stripper. Like I was just so interested and intrigued by it. And I think it's important to say, because I don't want to, like, a lot of people think, oh, you were in this bad situation and you had no choice but to be a stripper. But it was kind of like you really wanted, like you found empowerment, you found freedom out of it. Like it wasn't, of course, there's a million ways to make money. And I know a lot of people have this misconception that, you know, stripping is a last resort or sex work is a last resort. But in reality,
it takes so much talent to be a fucking stripper. Like, I'm sorry, like it's a lot of work, and I feel like people don't understand. They wear heels for 5 hours and they're like, I'm tired. I'm like, bitch, try being a fucking stripper. Why am I acting like I'm a stripper?
You are, no, sure, at heart you are.
My God.
No, like this is what people don't understand. All of the skills that I have for life now, I often say, like, I feel sorry for girls that haven't been a stripper, because I see, for example, you'll see these girls that are in like crappy relationships, they're being mistreated by their boss, they're like in these crap relationships. And it just stands out to me that society sees stripping as like this thing of, oh, you poor thing. Oh my God, no. Like you poor thing in your 9 to 5 going home to your cheating partner. That's a poor thing, not somebody in a club that's like earning money, that's being respected. Like,
not somebody who's coming back and is counting their money. You're like throwing it all over the bed. You're like, bitch, I feel sorry for you.
I could use like money as toilet paper if she wanted. Like that's not a poor thing.
I think as much as you can be free in your mind and in your life, I think money to a certain extent does bring a whole new sense of freedom. Like when you have money, it just opens up doors. Like going to school, going to school is unfortunate. It's not something that's free. You know, you need money to be able to, it has brought you like all of this freedom. And I think it's so interesting.
Absolutely.
What's the most you've ever made like from a day of stripping?
Where you said, I made the right decision.
We just want to know like if we should quit our jobs now.
So guys, as you know, it's never changed. If you want a neon sign, head over to Neonific and we have a discount code for you.
We have a discount code for you and it's Chemical X at checkout. So just go on their site, check the neon sign you want. They could legit make you anything you want, any size, any color. Neon sign.
Yeah, 10% off.
To be honest with you, the stripping scene used to be a lot better, and it's going on a big old nosedive because it got as soon as Cardi B came out, the whole market got saturated with girls that thought they were strippers, and I don't want to be one of those old bitches that's like, oh, I remember back in the day. But kind of is a little bit, you know, like back in the day, you could walk upstairs and you could make, in a night without even hustling, people just like giving you money or whatever, you can make like 3K Australian very easily. Like that was just like a normal
BRB
kind of...
going and quit my job.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I find a job that's gonna pay me like 2,000 every 2 weeks. I'm like, fuck yeah. You're like, I don't accept anything under 3 G's a day, sweetheart.
And it's funny, it gives you that inflated kind of concept, but that's what you should be getting paid, because you're completely like making yourself naked to strangers.
Absolutely.
Like that, you know. But I think the most I made one night was 5.5. But I know the girls that would make more than that, like
crazy.
But even like, for example, just little things, like I was a lot better one-on-one because I'm kind of a bit more of that kind of vibe. The guy that paid for my tits, like he was just a customer that would come into the club, like, and just wanted to help me out, you know. So amazing, yeah. But what stripping has, everybody has like this horrible mentality about it, especially because people are scared of it, you know. But what it means for a lot of females, and what it meant for myself, was getting myself out of the working class. By like, I was able to, it was buying me back hours of my life that I'd lost, you know. I was then able to like live comfortably, not stress about stuff. Like people now, they say like that I look young for my age, and it's because like for the last 4 years I've just been enjoying my life. Like I've just been happy, you know. And you can't get that back. Like I think that's pretty important. So
I think honestly, being happy is, you know, something that is like chased by everyone, and to have it and to hold on to it is like amazing, and to find it within yourself, like you literally leaned on yourself and made yourself happy, is amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like a lot of times people wait on somebody to make them happy, and the truth is like, you're not happy within yourself, no matter which person comes along the way, you're always going to be miserable until you accomplish what you want to and live the life you want. That's first of all, the minute you're going to find your king, and like you're going to kill it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I ended up seeing my experience, and like what had happened with me was pretty unusual, you know, and it was maybe a little bit worse than a lot of people in Melbourne especially have been through. But I ended up seeing it as like a gift that was given to me, because to go through such hardship and to go through trauma, and then to find your way out of it, brings about such a peace that I don't think you'd have otherwise. Like if you just go from like, you know, like a mediocre life and then maybe a little bit happier here, but if you go from like the fucking rock bottom and you drag yourself out, the happiness that you find at the end is just amazing.
Right.
Of course. I mean, they say you don't know what you've got till it's gone, and like you literally, when you started from the bottom, you literally don't know, like finding that kind of plateau is like, holy shit, I didn't know this existed. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
And I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
like also when you're at the bottom and you really have nothing else to lose, that's really when you're like,
Oh,
from here on
so
out, I can
true.
only gain. I cannot lose
That's
anything more.
so
So that's
true.
when you really
That's
start to
so
hustle
true.
and like,
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it gives
Um,
you so much gratitude. Like even just the smallest things, like being in my own house, like I've got my little cat here, like that to me is like pure joy, like I don't need much to
100%.
be happy. So
100, and that's an
mm,
amazing mentality to have. And
mm,
now I was thinking, so I'm assuming like with the COVID and lockdown, I'm sure it definitely took a toll on, all the clubs were closed and stuff like that. And
mm.
how did that kind of affect your job? And, how did that kind of like, how did you adapt and stuff
yeah,
like
like did
that?
you have to resort to another way of making money? Or...
For the first couple of weeks I tried OnlyFans, but for me it was too much of an anxiety because I can't have my image out there. To get qualified as a psych, you obviously can't have like pictures of you out there, like whatever. So it was just too much for me, the OnlyFans. It kind of helped me through the first couple of weeks. And then I just relied on savings for the rest of it.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a lot of like topless waitressing work that goes around Melbourne that's very, very enjoyable. It's just like parties and you're just there in your lingerie. And you get
Yeah.
like, really nicely paid for it. So I kind of pivoted to that. A lot of girls didn't do that. And I think it's like with any business, if you can't pivot, then you're probably going to go down. Like you can't just
Yeah.
depend on your one income and just wait for that. So
I see a lot of people who kind of like transition, like OnlyFans right now is kind of blowing up. And I think it's almost having that effect of like you said, the Cardi B thing, like how,
yeah,
Cardi B came out and then suddenly strip clubs and, the money you could make went down because it was so oversaturated. And I think the
yeah.
same thing almost happened with OnlyFans. And I think it's like, what was your experience with that? Was it like, how did it compare to you in terms of
Uh,
stripping?
horrible, horrible stuff. Like you've got like as soon as it started and everybody started flooding it, you had girls on there like bottling themselves for like $1. Like I'm not going to compete with a girl doing that sort of shit. Like I'm not doing that. I don't care how much money's involved. I'm not doing that. Like I
You're like,
do
take
like
my nude or leave. And the nude is $100.
um,
She's like, it's 1,000.
because this is good quality shit, all right. So, no, I found like I just wanted to do topless stuff because I'd done some topless modeling and stuff before, but I wasn't comfortable with getting like sexual stuff out there because it's just not. I don't want that floating around in the ethos forever because it's out there forever.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's
Like
crazy
I
because
don't
I've
care.
never really looked at it that way. Like I swear to God, I'm actually like learning right now because I would think like for someone who was literally working in the strip club, like to be doing technically, I mean, I guess I wouldn't say it's less work, but like OnlyFans is like an easier way to
Yeah,
make
yeah, yeah,
money
yeah.
where you're not having to work as hard in the sense where like you're talking to people. It's well, you are, but it's almost like virtually, so
Yeah.
it feels like it's an emotionally less like draining, I guess you could
And
say.
and you would think that, but I found it to be the exact opposite, where it was so emotionally draining. Because if you can imagine, in the strip club, you go in there, you deal with the person, you've got like money transferring into your hands. It's like kind of you have an offset, even though you don't like the fucking dude that you're doing a dance for. He's giving you money, and you just get it over and done with, and then you go and have a drink with your girls at the bar, and it's all good,
Right,
Like it kind of keeps the balance of
right.
everything. OnlyFans, it's like talking to a guy that you really don't like, and but talking to 100 of them all at once. Like
Oh my
the
God.
DMs
Right,
that
I
you get
can't
from these
imagine.
fucking guys is just so diabolical, and they think because it's private that they can just say or whatever dirty crap that they want can just come like onto the screen, like, and it's atrocious. Like it's so disgusting. So I found that I'd wake up and be like, I don't even want to look at my inbox. I don't want another
Right.
person asking me for stuff. It was not worth the emotional
Mhm.
drain. Like it was just horrible. And the feeling of being like compared to the rest of the OnlyFans girls, like I never
Mhm.
felt less attractive than when I was trying to do OnlyFans. Like
I mean, there's a difference between like, in a strip club, you see everyone with your own eyes, but on the internet, you can retouch your photos. Like the
Yeah.
standard is almost like
So
skewed,
true.
and you're up against everyone in the world. Whereas in a strip
Yeah,
club, you're
yeah,
up
yeah,
against,
yeah,
the people that
absolutely.
are in the
Yeah,
club.
it's so true.
Yeah. And I don't have the patience or the desire to catfish the internet. Like I can't be bothered editing my photos to the point where I look like someone else. I'm not going to do
Right.
it, And I think especially because I'm a little bit older, the younger generation are kind of that then, native to that. Like that comes very easily to them. But to me, it just doesn't. Like I don't want to take selfies and then spend hours editing shit. I don't want to do it.
Right.
Like I'm out.
Well,
No, thank you.
speaking of selfies, I mean, I remember when I first met you and like I went on your Instagram, you had this like bomb ass account. You were like a fucking influencer with all these followers and these booty pics. And I was like, yo, what? And I remember going through a stage where I would message you and then you would delete your Instagram and then you would come back and then you would delete it again. And then like you just deleted your whole Instagram. And I was like, what is going on? Like, how does, especially as like somebody who's in psychology, like what was that affected by? Was it really just like you're like, what the fuck is social media? Like,
She had a boyfriend, didn't she?
oh, I
Oh
wanted
my
a fun
God.
answer.
Can I have that account with a lot of followers so I could change it to the Chemical X podcast?
No, I didn't even have that many. I had 30K, but
Okay.
it was my
I have
account.
5,000.
I have 5,000 and I'm like, at what point can I like quit my job and like do this full time? Like, am I a micro influencer? Like, what am I and where do I stand on the spectrum?
No, I find that especially because my pictures and stuff, they're a little bit more I guess sexualized. I just get a lot of obviously males. Like my newest account that I've got, my personal one, it was sitting at 10K, and then I put up a twerking vid that went relatively viral, and I just suddenly had 20K followers. Like I don't actually put any, when you have inactive followers, and especially like men that are just wanting to look at your stuff, I don't even see them as followers anyway. So, but yeah, definitely when you're dating a dude and he's a little bit insecure about his sexy ass
Right.
girlfriend up there.
But you came back. You came back.
How is dating like now? Like, are you in a relationship? Like, did you find that hard to find someone knowing that you were a stripper, or like, how does that work?
That aspect of it, like relationship, when you're a stripper, is just the hardest thing ever, because you have an entire society of men that are trying to tell you that you're lucky if you have a boyfriend that's going to put up with that, because not very often do you find a man that's secure enough in himself to say like, yes bitch, like get your money, like how hot are you, like any of that. You just have a lot of dudes that are just not like that at all. And even one of the worst things, and a lot of strippers will like understand this, is that you develop such trust issues because you spend 4 years watching dudes like I'd be sat on a dude's lap naked and he's on the phone to his girlfriend like, yeah, I'm just at a restaurant and then I'm just gonna go with the boys home, like, and you see this, I saw that for 4 years, and in my mind thinking, no, okay, just don't ever trust a dude, like, so yeah, the guy that I'm seeing at the moment, like I'm just trying to explain that to him, but it's so difficult to explain like why you have these trust issues, so I think if you can find somebody that like understands that and doesn't see it as like you're a broken stripper, sees it as like you're amazing, like that's the only thing that matters.
You're a boss ass bitch.
Yeah, absolutely. And it shouldn't be seen as anything less than that, it absolutely shouldn't, like.
And I think like your whole, like how you came from being in a toxic relationship and how you were in a cult, like I feel like now, like everything that's happening in your life, I feel like the person that you're going to attract is going to be that person who is going to be at least more confident and be like, no, that's my girl. You're going to attract less like the super jealousy, like your ex, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found that because I've got to the point where I'm okay by myself, like I don't need no man, like, but honestly I don't need it. I'm good just having people around me that it sort of attracts it attracts a stronger type, because they can see that you actually you don't need them, but you want them, that sort of mentality.
It's a
so
choice.
yeah.
It's a choice.
Yeah.
So I just want to cover quickly, just to kind of wrap this all up into why you're amazing. So basically, you just graduated. Am I right? You just graduated in psychology. Congratulations.
Congrats.
Thank you.
We're super proud of you here.
Oh my God.
Honestly, that's an amazing feat. Like, definitely with everything that you've been through and everything that you've done, like, you know what I mean? I haven't been through half of what you have, and I can't even fucking graduate, college. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so definitely props to you. And I just wanted to kind of touch on how, studying psychology, like you said, like you want to incorporate like helping women in your, helping women understand how to get out of situations. And how do you feel like it really helped you? Like, do you feel like you were able to almost kind of understand why the people in your life that caused you trauma, why they did that? You were able to understand behind it.
Very good question, because that was pretty much right at the like center of how my walk has gone the way it has. I'm a deep thinker. I think a lot about whatever's in front of me, and I just knew that the absolute like mess that was handed to me, I needed to understand it from a different viewpoint, maybe from like an academic or an intellectual viewpoint as to why that had actually happened. So I used, I didn't actually realize that I was being so strategic, but it was, looking back now, it was a brilliant kind of way to do it, because, on the weekends, I would be spending time like growing as a person, like sexually and in my confidence. And then during the week, I'd be, learning these units, like taking these units on, just why everything had happened the way that it had, I mean, apart from statistics, because that shit, nobody ever needs to learn that. So, but when it comes to like the psych side of it, the trauma, the way to get out of things, even like biologically, why my brain had, sometimes I'd sit in lectures crying because I was just like, that's what was happening to me. Like, that's the biological effect of somebody that goes through hectic amounts of trauma, So it was really confronting. And then even like the addictive studies, like when it started talking about like chemical stuff of like having seen my ex-husband go down the road that he had, and then why that had happened. Like, I just cried so many times during my degree. So,
but do you feel like you almost found peace? Like, do you feel like it brought you a sense of peace in understanding?
Amazing. Absolutely. And it brought me a certain level of authority. That's why, like, the whole reason of why I was doing it was because I want to step out with a little bit of credence or a bit of authority on the subject. I don't just want to come out there, step out into society and be like, all right, females, this is what you do, and you have to do it like this. Like, once you have the backing of like a degree, and then I'll continue on to do my honors and whatever, it sort of gives you an authority to be able to talk about it in depth, and I do have a lot of understanding behind it. So it's been amazing.
There's obviously things every single person can better, and I was like, maybe I should go see like a therapist. And I feel like your opinion or your thoughts, like from everything you've been through, is so much more legit than a normal person who just studied in it but didn't have the experience to back it up. So honestly,
it's so true. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. And I feel like that's what hardship births. It births the ability to have empathy for people in a way that otherwise you wouldn't. Like, when I see females that are broken, or people that are broken in general, I feel so heavily for them, and I believe that that's where psychology needs to go. Like, psychologists need to be able to feel for their clients, otherwise it's just not going to work. Absolutely. So
wow, thank you so much
for
sharing your story. Honestly, we appreciate it so much. I know it must be, especially like you said, it's the first time you really open up about it, and I know it's probably like hard, and you're afraid to say the wrong thing, but we're proud of you at least, and I'm sure so many people are proud of you.
There's nothing wrong you could ever say on Chemical X podcast.
But honestly, congratulations on your degree. Congratulations on just taking a hold of your life. And I'm sure, and I hope that the people listening will be super inspired to kind of just take their life in their hands and realize that, no matter the situation, it's all about you. And like you said, anything you want is only like a mindset away. So
absolutely. And I think that's like my final message of that is definitely like, anybody out there that's going through hardship, that's going through trauma, or that is even just like it's stuck or whatever, like you're not stuck. Like you can get out of whatever you need to get out of. And on the other side of it is just more than you could have imagined before. So
changing your surroundings, changing your mindset, and you can take over the world.
Yes.
And become a stripper. Yeah.
Yes. And if people want to find you on the internet, where can they find you? What is your
my Insta is Dreaming with Xanthia. So Xanthia is spelled like, yeah, put it up because it's very
I'll put it up. But guys, you heard it. If you want to check out her booty pics, if you want to support her, and titties. If you're in Australia, go see her titties.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Mwah.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.